Hey guys, welcome to another episode of How I the series. On this episode, we have Salem King who is going to be telling us how find out.
Hi guys, my name is Salem King. I'm a content creator based in Lagos, Nigeria. Today I'll be telling you about how I decided to be a full-time content creator.
Hi guys, welcome to How I the series. How I is a collection of personal stories about how amazing individuals did something pivotal in your life or your career, or even with your personality. This is not an interview, guys. It is just a first-person account of your journey to getting something done, or even becoming something. With How I, will hear different kinds of stories, some deep, some light, some funny, but all of them real, all of them unfiltered, and directly from the person with no interruptions. I hope you enjoy the stories. I promise you they're amazing. Watch, enjoy, subscribe. I'll see you.
So the story begins in like 2018. I started making videos, but I wasn't taking it very seriously. I only used to post videos to my Instagram stories. Snapchat was big at the time, but I really hated Snapchat because you needed to have a very interesting life to put videos out on Snapchat, And my life was not interesting. My life was very boring. So when Instagram made stories, everybody was mad that they're copying Snapchat. But for me, that was huge because Snapchat, interesting things had to be happening in your life real time. You had to be popping bottles, partying, eating at nice places. None of that was happening in my life. So I started making videos and I'll just post them on Instagram stories because after 24 hours it would disappear, low commitments. It was just easier. But sometime in December 2018, I made a decision that I wanted to post 30 videos in 30 days. This was random. I don't even know where that idea came from. I just decided I'm going to post 30 videos in 30 days to push myself to do this thing that I enjoy. Now, at the time, I had a 9 to 5. I worked in a real estate marketing company. I was selling houses, basically. It was my first job out of school. So I just kept making videos as an escape. So January 1st comes, I start making videos every single day, posting on Instagram. I didn't have time to record during the day because I would go to work, come back at night, and then record later in the day. But at the time I had like 1,500 followers on Instagram. And in my mind, I'm like, if I can just go from 1.5 to 2K followers in this 30-day period, that would be huge. Like I would have blown. But in that 30-day period, I went from 1.5 to 5,000 followers. So my following literally tripled in that time period. And I was just doing something that I had fun with. At the time, I didn't even know there was a name for it, content creation. I didn't know anything about content creation, didn't know anything about strategy, nothing. I just had ideas that I really wanted to share. And I saw that people liked it. And I'm like, okay, you guys love this thing. There's more where that came from. I'm going to keep dishing it out to you guys. A lot of the content I was sharing at the time was stuff that had been sitting in my notes, for years, stuff that I wrote to myself, stuff that I was teaching myself. And I just decided, I want to teach everybody else. I want to share this with everybody else. Like I said, I didn't know it was a job. I didn't know it was a thing. I didn't know anything like content creation until some months later. Then I realized, there's a fancy name for this thing. It's content creation. My videos were black and white. When I started to take courses and learn, I realized, this thing that differentiates me from other people, there's a fancy name for it. It's personal branding. I didn't know all of this before I started. I just wanted to make videos and put stuff out there. But I think around the time when I was at like 6 or 7K followers, one time I got an email from a brand that said, how much are you going to charge to promote so and so and so? And me in my mind, I'm like, charge? So you mean like this thing that I'm doing for free? I can do it for money, like they'll actually give me money. I think it was, they had like really ridiculous deliverables and they were going to give me 20K and I was excited. Like I was so excited I was actually going to take it because I had never gotten money from anything other than my monthly salary. So that was just going to be really huge for me. But I showed it to somebody that I looked up to and I'm like, nope, you're not doing this, typed an email for me, sent it back. That deal never pulled through, but that was the first time when something sort of broke in my mind that, oh wow, this thing that I was doing as a hobby, this thing that I was doing after work hours, this thing that I was just having fun with, this thing that I was treating as an escape, people see monetary value. And it wasn't me, like it wasn't me that reached out to the brand to say, oh, come and work with me. It was them that saw that, oh, this guy has this audience and we want to reach this audience and we would pay money for it. It was 20K, despicable. But the fact that that was even a thing, it just sort of shifted something in my mind, you know? And of course, I didn't get a brand deal like that for another couple months. Nothing came. And I just kept making my content. I just kept having fun. A few months later, I was at 10K. And I want to at 10K on Instagram. Now it's not so much like that, but like back in 2019, when you had 10K on Instagram, it was a big deal. You know, 10K now is like 10K is the new 100K. But back then, there were certain features you didn't even have unless you had 10,000 followers. And it was really huge for me. And that was the first time that I realized, oh, I had entered into another territory and there was another fancy word for it, influencer. One thing that was very common, or one thing that stood out to me is I went from just being a regular Instagram user to someone who was getting hundreds of comments on a post. My engagement was so good. Everyone who followed me was a real person. And me, I used to respond to every single comment. I didn't even, it wasn't even, I didn't know that that was a strategy for community building. I was just so grateful, you know? Like, wow, you took 60 seconds out of your day to watch my stuff. Thank you. Sometimes I would tap on people's profiles, you know, and just check what their name is so that I could respond in a very personal way. Didn't know at the time that this was something people used as a strategy. I was just like, oh wow, you watch my content, thank you. And that really, really endeared people to me. So even at the point where I had 10K, my followers were like diehard fans. So one thing that stood out was every time people would always ask me, how do you make your videos? And I would get a lot of DMs and I'll always respond, you know, I'll do screen recording, show people this is how I make it, this is how I edit. People started to ask me other questions apart from how you edit, like how are you able to say so much within such a short period of time? People would ask me, I see that you're introverted, how are you able to express yourself so well in video content? People would ask me just a whole bunch of questions. And then I was talking to someone that I look up to and he said, if you're getting so many questions for something, there is a percentage of these people who would be willing to pay for this knowledge. I didn't believe it because I'm like, I've never gotten money from anything other than this my 9-to-5 job. So what I did was I did a free class because I wanted to see, okay, you know, if I'm going to charge money for this class, can people actually replicate my results? If they take the things that I have learned, if they take the things that I practice, that I documented, and I teach them that, oh, this is how I interact with my audience, this is how I'm thinking when I'm writing a video script, this is how I make a very mundane idea very relatable, this is how I make complex ideas simple. I was thinking, if I find a way to express this to someone, will they be able to replicate my success? That's something that I was afraid for. So I did a free class, got like a couple people in, and I saw the results from the free class. Like I saw the results people had from what I taught for free, and that just like, I just got angry. I'm like, okay, people are seeing results, people are seeing numbers because of what I told them. Next class is going to be paid. So the next class I did, I put it for 5,000 naira. It was 5K. Now I posted it on my story, Instagram stories. Like I told you now, my whole journey started on Instagram stories. Even till now, like I love Instagram stories so much. So I put up a class. I said I was going to have 50 people at 5K. I was afraid. I didn't know how I was going to get all those people. But in 24 hours, 50 people had signed up. 50 people had signed up at 5K. And at that time, I'm like, it was crazy to me. And there were more people who were like, we want to get in, we want to get in, we want to get into the class. You know, it was the first time I ever came out to say, oh, I'm going to teach how I make my videos. And, you know, I opened another group just because there were so many people. Like after 50 was full, there were so many people that were still interested. So I opened another group, you know, and started taking payments. In another 24 hours, just over 24 hours, another group of 50 was full. And this was just crazy to me, right? Because That was the first time in my life that I had made that much. If you are watching this, I'm sure you're already doing the math. But like, that was the first time ever in my life that I made 500k in that short an amount of time. Like, it blew my mind, right? That was the most money I had ever made from anything. And I still had a 9 to 5. So you can imagine making 6 months of your salary in 2 days. All the payments came in barely 48 hours. And that just blew my mind. That was the first time I realized, oh wow, I'm sitting on money. I don't need to do this job. I don't need to do this job. And so I started to plan my escape. And it wasn't just because I was irresponsible or wanted to leave my job, it was because I found that I genuinely loved making videos. I genuinely loved what I experienced with my community. All of that gave me so much joy. So I'm like, if there's a way for me to do what I love and for it to now pay me more than this thing that I don't really like that. Like, I'm learning from it, I'm growing in the role, but like, I don't enjoy it and I would really prefer to do what I enjoy. I started to plot my escape. So I had like a 3-month plan, to save some money and just immediately dip. And just before I became a full-time content creator, a friend of mine who I learned a lot from, he started to tell me, I think I was around like 12k followers, started to tell me, Salem, you need a manager. I'm like, manager, how much am I making that, how am I going to pay a manager? And he said, no, don't think about it as, somebody who has blown or somebody who's big. Do you have a friend? He said, do you have a friend who is business savvy and wants to see you win? That's just it. Think about who that is and work with them and grow with them. And immediately he said that, like, a name just popped in my head, one of my oldest friends, Daniel. And I reached out to him like, yo, this is what I'm trying to build. This is what I'm trying to do. I'm leaving my job to do this full time, but I'm not so great at the business side of things. If I want to do it full time, I need to make money. I need to keep the lights on. Would you work with me to be my manager? Handle the business side of things, run negotiations, represent me. Yeah, so I invited him to handle negotiations, business side of things, and I would just keep doing what I do. He would represent me. And he said he would think about it. And when he came back, I think like 2 weeks later, when he came back to say yes, he came with a contract. And me, I'm like, we're guys now. Like, we've known each other for 12 years. Why are you bringing contract? But he's like, no, this is business, this is work. This contract is not just to protect our business, but to also protect our friendship. And that's how I knew that I picked the right person. I won the manager lottery jackpot. And then we started working together from there, more influencer partnerships, did a couple more classes. One time he came and just said, Salem, I lived in Abuja, by the way, when all of this was happening. One day he came and just said, Salem, we're going to do a class in Lagos. And that was the scariest thing I'd ever heard, because I was like, I don't even live in Lagos. I don't even go to Lagos. We don't even have money, But he said, we're going to go to Lagos and we'll do a class. So we came to Lagos, we did a class for 20 people. I don't remember if it was 20 people or 25 people, but we organized a class. At this time, this is like 1 year from the time I started content creation. At this time, I had perfected, documenting my processes, how I came up with my ideas. How do you come up with ideas? How do you communicate in a way that makes people watch your videos to the end? How do you make sure that your brand stays important? How do you make your audience feel seen? And I had figured out a way to teach people when I did my free classes and when I did my paid online classes, right? So at the time when we were going to do physical classes, it was a walk in the park, right? However, we didn't have money. After we paid for the space that we were going to use for the class, paid for, lunch, paid for our flights, we didn't have any money. Like, we didn't even have accommodation. We literally stayed with a friend. Like, we literally shacked up with a friend for like a couple days. So we went back to Abuja, no money at all, like zero. Because like I said, after we paid for everything, all the money from the class was gone. But it showed me something. It showed me what was possible. It showed me that I didn't need to think about this thing that I wanted to do just within the context of Abuja where I was living. You know, I needed to think outside the box. And some months later, Daniel was like, okay, we're going to Lagos again. We're doing another class. I think peace was there. I'm going to dig up the pictures and send them to you. We had another class in Abuja again. I got some of my friends to support, and it was amazing, you know. And this whole time I was experiencing Lagos, but I just wanted to come and go back, come and go back. But I had to now start checking the back end and seeing that, okay, a large amount of my following lived in Lagos, like up to 50%, right? But every time someone said, you know, come and move to Lagos, I'm like, God forbid, can never be me. I will never ever live in Lagos. I can never live in these people's, you know. That was always my tone. But with time, I think this was 2021, Adora hit me up and said, yo, there's a job, you know, and we need somebody to handle content strategy, but you need to be in Lagos for 8 weeks. Me, I said yes, sharp. I didn't even need to think about it. I said yes, because before then I had been looking forward to working with Adora on anything, really. So even if she had said, no matter what she had said, I would have said yes because of her, not necessarily because of the project. I didn't mind. I'm like, okay, Lagos, that's fine. I'm bored, so I could use a getaway. So I left Abuja, came to Lagos, spent about 2 months. Now that was the first time that I had ever been here for an extended period of time. Every other time it was like 1 weekend and I'm out. It was like 2 days and I'm out. Like I was always in a hurry to leave. I don't know why. But at that time I stayed for 2 months and it was the first time that I experienced the city, you know, met people, went out, worked with people, collaborated, just really felt the vibe, you know, of the city. And I started to feel like, oh, wait, I could actually live here. And it was crazy to me because that's not something I thought I would ever tell myself. So of course, when I said that to everyone who cared about me or was close to me, my friends, everybody just thought you've lost your mind. How can you want to move to Lagos? You know, why would you want to do something like that? So I thought about it. After the 2-month project, I went back to Abuja. But like for the 1 month that I was there before I moved, I couldn't think about anything but Lagos. Like I just wanted to be back here. I couldn't think about anything. Like every time, you know, it was hard for me to work, it was hard to focus. I'm just like Lagos. I had to go back to Lagos, but I was stalling because I'm like, but I'm not a Lagos person. This spirit these people have where they embrace suffering, that's not me. You know? But I found a way, you know, to come here. I stayed with a friend for a while, so I had like a bit of a soft landing. I didn't come in and just start paying rent, you know. So everything was cool. I came here and I found a way to curate my life in such a way that I didn't have to have the normal Lagos experience, you know, that everyone has. You know, I can do a master class on how to navigate Lagos without suffering. Now, I've figured it out, I've hacked it. I'm not stressed. My anxiety levels are not up there. I'm chilling. You have to have small money, sha. But that's what it was like. I moved to Lagos, and one of the things that I experienced being in Lagos is, first of all, as a full-time creator, because the majority of my audience was in Lagos, it just made sense. So every time I would try to do a hangout, people would show up like crazy. I don't know if you know anything about Abuja people, but they don't really like outside like that. Sometimes it's very difficult to get them to show up. But Lagos, yo, everybody was just with the energy. Like, people were very happy to pay for stuff, to come out and all. So Lagos just made sense, especially as an influencer. One thing I learned from John Obidi is Lagos is the entertainment capital of Nigeria, right? So if you're working in anything from media, entertainment, tech, you know, low-key, it makes sense to have one foot in Lagos most of the time if you're based in Nigeria. So it just the decision made sense. At the time when I made it, it was scary, but it was perfect. Now, at the time when I came to Lagos, I also got an offer for a job. Someone I keep mentioning people that I look up to, but one of my mentors, he would flinch if he heard that word, but that's what I see him as. Reached out to me and said, Salem, I'm looking for a digital marketing manager, recommend someone. And I'm like, okay, I'll give you a recommendation sometime tomorrow. And before I could get back to him and give him a recommendation, he was like, come and work with me now, you know? And I'm like, I don't really want to work with anybody, but okay, you know, I'll do the interview. So I sent my CV across. I passed the first stage. They scheduled me for an interview. I did the interview. I got the role. We agreed on offers and everything, and it was great. It was inspiring, challenging also. I also wasn't at the time. I didn't realize how. At the time, I hadn't worked in a 9 to 5 for. I hadn't worked in a 9 to 5 for almost 3 years. So I didn't realize how much adjusting I would have to do, you know, because my time was entirely within my control. I had built systems around my life that were optimized for me and what I wanted. You know, so for example, I wouldn't work on Mondays, which is the antithesis of a 9 to 5 life. You know, Monday is when everybody wakes up and jump starts. But me, I didn't used to wake up and jump start on Monday. I'm sleeping on Mondays. And the reason was because I worked most weekends, right? So sometimes I'm taking a training or I'm attending an event or I'm covering something. Weekends were normally very stressful for me. So on Mondays, I just wouldn't work. I'll just take Monday as my Saturday to rest. Having a 9 to 5, that's something that I really had to adjust to, and that was difficult. Even though it was an amazing, inspiring role, I worked with amazing people. 3 months in, I just realized that I don't know that this is in line with what I am optimizing for my life and what's important to me. And it was a very difficult decision to make, you know, leaving, but after I left, I realized this is the best decision I've made in a long time. Like, I had to applaud myself, like, say, you really tried. You know, I had a lot of fears. I feared that I was leaving too early. I feared that, what does this mean? Does this mean I cannot do hard things? Does this mean every time I try to do something that's difficult, I'm just going to leave, you know? But I realize now that that's not what it was. Because what leaving did was leaving gave me a brand new appreciation for my life as it was before I joined the company, before I took the job. And what I mean is, most of the content creators I know are not full-time content creators, right? Because it's very difficult to do that in Nigeria. There's no blueprint, there's no path, you know, you have to find a way to keep the lights on. You know, especially some people have responsibility, they have siblings to take care of, they have families to take care of. You know, having a career or having a job where you make 200K today, next month you make 0, then the next month you make 1.2 million, then the next 2 months, you don't know where the next one is going to come from. It can be very uncertain, you know, and some people just cannot have that in their lives, you know. So I totally understand, but I also find that there were also a lot of upsides. There were also a lot of things that I enjoyed by having that. For example, I just got back from a 2-week trip to South Africa. All expense paid trip, tickets. If I had a 9 to 5, what would I tell my CEO? You know, what would I tell my boss? What would I tell my line manager that I'm traveling somewhere because I'm an influencer and I have 100K followers? So I wanted to do more things like that. I wanted to be more spontaneous in my life. I wanted to have room. I wanted time freedom, right? So which is something I always tell people, you know, to ask yourself, what am I optimizing for? For some people, they're optimizing for, you know, more money. They're optimizing for more money because they want to get something, they want to move abroad, or they want to travel more, or they want to take care of their family, they want to move their family from one place to another. You need to always ask yourself, what are you optimizing for? And me, when I asked myself the question, I realized that even though money was super important to me, it was not the most important thing. I know that every Nigerian is just going to foam at the mouth hearing me say that. But it is what it is, you know, and everyone needs to ask themselves, what's important to me? What do I want out of life? And with everything I do and decide not to do, what am I optimizing for? So when I left, I just went ballistic with my content, right? Like I became more consistent than I had ever been. I became more expressive than I had ever been. Every kind of content that I felt like, oh, I can't make that, it's going to be, I just started making it. And my content is like everything to me. My personal brand is everything to me. Anything I'm doing apart from my personal brand, that's my side hustle. You know, people have main jobs and then treat their content as this thing I do on the side. Nah, my content is my main thing. And I had to admit that to myself. I had to stop comparing myself to all my friends who were content creators but also had like full-time roles, and know that, okay, my path is different. What I'm optimizing for is different. What I want out of life is different. And it's a difficult road. You know, I don't know up to 4 or 5 people that are full-time content creators, you know, in my whole life in Nigeria right now, because it's a very difficult path. When I'm anxious or when I'm worried, it's for all the right reasons. All the problems I have are problems that I chose, you know, so like to me, they're high quality problems. So that's the story of how I decided to become a full-time content creator in Nigeria. So I recently watched the movie Air, which is about how Michael Jordan got the Air Jordan deal. And one very interesting thing I got out of it is, at the time when Nike decided to work with Michael Jordan, Adidas had the highest market share for basketball shoes in the US. And then the second company that had the highest market share was Converse. And Nike was almost non-existent, had less than 20% market share in that hierarchy. But there was someone on the team who just knew they had to work with Jordan. Now, at the time, he was 18 years old. So all the record-breaking stuff had not even happened. He was just even joining the NBA. He was still like playing high school basketball. But he just strongly believed that there was something, right? And I've had that at different seasons of my life. One was when I was working the job the first time and I started making videos. Every time I see that there's this thing where I'm putting in 20% effort and it's giving me 80% of results, I don't ignore it. I just never ignore it because I know that there's something there. I still do that with my content. Every time I make a certain kind of content and I see that, oh, this was like very little effort for me, but people really love it. Even if I don't love it, I stop and study what's going on here. And I think that's something that's important in every area of human endeavor. You know, whenever there is something that we see acting differently than we're used to, we should stop and observe. Scientists do the same thing. When they put, you know, an organism under a microscope and they see how it behaves, they're like, okay, let's check. This one is a virus. Okay, let's check. This one is bacteria. You know, all these things is how we cross boundaries. Is how we break into uncharted territory. There's something there for us to study. There's something there for us to replicate. There's something there for us to teach other people, and there's something there that could potentially make you $1 million. You just never know. Yeah.
That's a great one. So just saying the things that already have fruit, and if you're spending less time on it and it's doing really well, just pay attention.
Yep.
Right? Just pay attention. That's what
100%.
you're saying. Makes sense. I also really liked when you were talking about what you're optimizing for. I was going to ask the question on what you're optimizing for, but I think you didn't answer it. That you're really optimizing for some form of flexibility, right? Being able to just do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
And I think that's really great because some people would say, hey, I'm optimizing for stability, and that would drive their decisions and the jobs that they'll take or how they create their life.
Yeah.
But when you know exactly that you're not I'm not looking for money. I mean, obviously you want money, but that's not the most important thing. It's not the stability. It's just having that flexibility. I think that's really great. Was there a point where you sat down to say, what do I want to optimize for in my life? Or you just woke up one day and realized, oh, this is what I'm optimizing for?
I think it was a decision. I've been through a whole process of understanding what it is that makes me happy. I learned that I'm not as financially motivated as I thought I was. Because like You know how, let me give this example. I was having a conversation with my girlfriend one day, and I said, it was about a project I was supposed to work on. And I said, I really do not want to work on this project. And she said, why? And I told her why. And she said, what if they were going to pay you $100K? And I said, it still wouldn't change my mind, probably. And she stopped herself when she was saying that and said, yeah, that's true. I asked that question as if I didn't know you. I knew that you still are not going to do something you don't want to do, even when. So that's something I observed about myself, that if you're going to pay me 10K for something and I don't want to do it, if you tell me, what if I give you 15K? Like, nothing really changes. So I had to stop and say, wait, like, the thing that makes every Nigerian happier than anything else is like money, you know? And then I found like, okay, that's not what it is for me. Like, I like to have money. I like to do things where, I have more than I need for just my needs. But there's something else I want. There's something else that's more important to me. There's something else that makes me actually feel self-actualized and in control of my life. And it's not just how much is in my bank account. So I had to stop and study myself. Self-awareness is a journey. It's an inquisition. It's a constant inquisition into self. And that's something that I do every single day of my life. Sometimes, it's a blessing and a curse, because sometimes I'm like too deep into self-awareness. But it comes down to self-awareness and asking myself. And I would advise everyone, when deciding what you're optimizing for, keep asking yourself why until you cannot ask yourself why anymore. So if you say, okay, I want stability, ask yourself, why do I want stability? So maybe the answer is, well, I grew up in a home where there wasn't stability, and I saw how it affected the relationship between my parents, and I don't want that to be me. Why don't I want it to be me? Because I want whoever my partner is to be happy. I want my children to not have to worry about certain things when they are still children. Okay, why is that something that's important to you? And just keep, breaking it down so that your convictions are deeper rooted. So when you're saying no, you don't feel like you're being unkind when you're saying no, because you're very sure of why you do what you do, or why you choose what you choose. Work becomes no longer just work. Like, work is no longer just this thing I go to and they pay me at the end of the month. It now has purpose. It now has intent. There's a reason why you wake up every morning. Yeah.
Amazing. That was so good. I have one final question, because this is not interview format, but then I have so many things to ask you. But I have self control. You talked about hacking being a full-time creator for yourself. Like, when you quit the job, the full-time job that you got, and then you just started going really hard, like, consistently, also paying attention to the kind of content that does really well. What works for you? I'm not saying share tips. This is not a content creator class. But,
Yeah.
like, when you think about what has worked for you in building your brand, going from 1K to hitting 100K, working with amazing brands, doing amazing ad. What has worked for you that is solely this is my thing, and it works for me, and that's how I had to be a full-time creator.
Man, peace. If I had to say one thing, is people. Like, I genuinely love people, right? So that's how I am approaching every single post I make. When I'm writing a script, I'm thinking somebody's across the table from me, they're experiencing a problem. I need to offer them a solution for that problem. How do I communicate this to them in 60 seconds? When I'm selling a book, I'm thinking, what do these people want to achieve in their own lives? How am I going to give that to them, and what's in it for me, right? So I'm talking about when I'm selling a product where there's a price. That's it. It's the same across board. So that's the thing that works for me. Like, I just constantly have at the back of my mind, I think it's more than the back of my mind, like, my entire mind is saturated with the fact that before you're in the business of anything, you're in the business of people. So, like, I'm constantly thinking of these people that I'm trying to serve. I don't see when I look at my bio, when I look at my Instagram bio, I don't see 100K followers. I see 100K people. I don't. When you work in marketing, it's very easy to reduce people to metrics, to read, engagement rates, conversion rates, number of leads, all that stuff. But when it comes down to it, each of those leads is people. That conversion rate, that percentage is people. It's people who made a decision. So even when I'm working with brands, it's the same way I'm thinking about it. I'm not just thinking, oh, this brand has paid me money, let me talk about their product. It's like, no, is this product going to be valuable to members of my audience? And sometimes that makes me say no to some brands. Like, okay, your product is amazing, but I don't think people in my audience will find it valuable, and I don't think it's fair for me to just collect your money, So yeah, that's it for me, people.
I hope you have enjoyed listening to Salem King's story of how he became a full-time creator. I think there's so many things to learn from it, and I hope that you did, because I definitely enjoyed it. Hi Salem, shout out to you. Thank you for sharing your story with me and with everyone. Keep doing amazing stuff. We're rooting for you. Guys, please make sure that you don't leave this my channel without subscribing. Click the subscribe button, like it, comment, share with your friends and family. Help my channel grow. And also remember, if you want to share your How I stories with me, you can do that by emailing howitheseries@gmail.com. If you're in Lagos or London, we can definitely set something up. Whatever story you think has been pivotal to who you are right now, let me know. Feel free to pitch. See you on the next episode. Peace out.